say silence, going. Something like that. Oh, yes. Be a pinch up. The Derby before the storm. Let's hope. Yes.
Good morning and welcome to this meeting of the Northern Area Planning Committee on the 10th of December 2024. This is one of 3 area-based planning committees of Dorset Council. For the benefit of the public attending today or watching on the live stream, I am Councillor Richard Crabb, Chair of this committee. My Vice Chair is Councillor David Taylor. The meeting is being live streamed and will be available to view on the Council website after the meeting. By attending this meeting, you consent to being filmed. Can I remind everyone that when you are speaking, please speak directly into the microphones so that you can be clearly heard and seen. Please could I remind committee members of my recent email regarding refreshments during the meeting. Also, I need to remind members about discussing applications with one another at any time, as well as during any adjournments. The Planning Committee is not a public meeting, but a meeting to which the public is invited. All attendees must comply with the ruling of the Chair. They must not interrupt the meeting or cause undue disturbance. To support this, please switch off your mobile phones or select silent mode for the duration of the meeting. And those using Teams, please ensure microphones are on mute and your device volume is set to 0 to maintain audio quality. Only those who have registered to speak in accordance with the speaking protocol will be invited to address the committee for a maximum of 3 minutes. No material is to be circulated to members of the committee. We have 3 planning applications to determine today. The first is to consider outline planning permission for 4 dwellings. The second is planning permission for 10 affordable dwellings. And the third is a referred matters application for 155 homes. For each application, the case officer will be invited to present their report and recommendations. Next, I will invite members of the public who have registered to speak to address in the following order: the public against, public support, the applicant or agent, town, parish, council and ward members. Each speaker has 3 minutes. Please come to the small table at the front when I call your name. Sit down at the chair so that you are close to the microphone. Turn on the microphone by pressing the right-hand side button and press again to turn off when finished. Please speak clearly. I will give you a heads up when you have 30 seconds left of your 3 minutes. Following public speaking, the planning officers will have the opportunity to address any salient points they wish to clarify, and committee members will be given the opportunity to ask questions of the planning officers before moving on to debate. When we go into councillor questions and debate, for the benefit of the public watching, can the member state their name and ward when addressing the meeting, always directing comments via the chair? At the end of the debate, I will take the vote by a show of hands. The voting detail will be recorded in the minutes if 3 or more members make the necessary request. Now, I will start the agenda. Apologies. I have not received any apologies for today's meeting. Does anyone who are members have any declarations of pecuniary interests or conflict interest, bias or predetermination? Should something come up in the meeting that you think you should declare, then please let me know straight away. The minutes, item 3. Please can we show, by show of hands, approve the minutes of the last meeting held on Tuesday, 5th of November, 2024. Okay, those minutes have been accepted. Thank you very much. Registration for public speaking. Members of the public wishing to speak to the committee on a planning application should notify the Democratic Services Officer no later than 2 clear days before the meeting. The deadline for this meeting was Friday, the 6th of December at 8:30 a.m. Now we move on to the planning applications, item number 5. And as I mentioned before, we have 3 applications to consider. It's a very rough guide. I think the first will take around an hour to decide, and the second around 45 minutes. The third one will probably take just over an hour. And if we need a break, I'll let you know. Again, I'd like to welcome John to the committee as our new Democratic Services Officer. Megan is continuing to assist John for the next meeting. Okay, we now go on to the planning applications. This is for 6 new dwellings at Fordington Farm, Hullington Road, Dorchester.
Sorry.
This will be presented by Jim Bennett. We have 2 speakers who object to the development and the agent who will speak in support of it. Jim, please could you go ahead with the presentation?
Thank you, Chair. Chair said this is an application at Fordington Farm, Dorchester. It's a full application for the erection of 6 dwellings with access to 2 points through the site. That's the area photograph of the surrounding site. The application site is by the red line with access, main access from a mile away in this location here, and access to a single unit from the Wareham Bridge area from this location here. You can see that the site is largely bound by existing urban development on all sides. It's the area of Fordington Farm itself. By the way, old site to the west, that one present to the south, and existing dwellings on Sandringham Court to the west. Really, the west plan is the same, showing the site edge red in relation to the existing pattern of development in the locality. This is the proposed block plan for the site. So the proposal is for these 2 semi-detached dwellings in this location here, 2 more semis here, single detached unit here, all accessed from this point on Armada Way through an existing access, which is the applicant's sort of acquisition to the farmyard area, Fordington Farm, and then there's single detached dwelling will be accessed from the north. This plan gives you an idea of the urban grain of the area. Has been suggested that it's overdeveloped, but you can see from the garden areas and the space around these dwellings, it's really rather more generous than the existing grain developments surrounding the proposal sites. The proposal also incorporates quite a lot of additional landscaping to its heart. The existing leyland hedge around Fordington Farm replaced with peaks limes in the interests of visual amenity and biodiversity. There has been some comments about this removal of trees along this line of hedgerow in this location here. They were removed prior to the issue of TPO in this location, and as you can see, they will be replaced with a new hedgerow line and heavy standard tree specimens represented by the green circles along that route. So there will be enhancements to this footway, which bounds the eastern portion, or eastern boundary of the site. So go through some typical elevations. So this is one of the semi-detached units. Very conventional design, bricks, slates, articulated roof form, use of chimneys. This is another semi-detached unit. Again, this is a slightly larger format with room on 3 floors, ground first, and roof space you can like with dormers. This is the detached property, reasonably attractive design, find acceptable. Ventilation is limited to the ground floor. In this location here, in the interest of preserving the privacy of dwellings to the west and Sandringham Court. And this is the single detached unit, access from the north, which provides accommodation on 2 floors, but it's essentially a single story unit. Going through some of the photographs of the site. This is the proposed access from Sandringham Way. As has been pointed out, it is quite a tight access. The pinch point between the walling here and the adjoining occupier here. But we don't have any objection from the Island Authority on access grounds. And it has been pointed out that the applicant does have a fallback, but he may utilise this access for the now redundant agricultural use of the farm. So the fallback is that the farm could come back to operating quite large vehicles, which have a right of access through this point. So this is a situation where we consider whether the use by 5 additional dwellings is that any worse than the fallback of the applicant. So this is another photograph of the same access. The site will be accessed through this gate here, and this is the rear parking court for dwellings on Armada Way. This shows an internal view of the site. This is the closest point of access from Armada Way. This unit here, one of the former farm buildings, will be demolished to make way for the development. These buildings here are on another portion according to farm separate ownership. Don't form part of the application, but the boundary is along this line here where this wall is currently, and there will be 2 semi-detached units in this location here. This is the footway on the eastern boundary of the site. You can see it's already formed by a portion of hedge in this location here, which is in reasonable condition. Maybe the case that can be retained, but further down to the south, it's a rather more scrubby. It appears maybe the case that needs to be replaced. And I've said heavy sanded tree setting put in to enhance the setting of the footpath, which is quite an important link between Balmoral Crescent and the Wareham Bridge area. Yeah, this is an internal view of the site. These are dwellings on Armada Way. This wall here would be retained between the site and the car park area for Armada Way. This building to be removed, and this whole portion developed for the residential development. This is just a view of the access to the single units from the Wareham Bridge area. This photograph here, and the rough location of the footprints of the single unit. Orson farmhouse in this location here. There will be 1 or 2 more of these trees removed. I think one of them's got ash dieback. The tree actually agrees to that removal of that, but as I've said, the boundary on this side of the footpath will be enhanced with replacement hedgerows and tree specimens. So, in conclusion, officers consider the principle of residential development to be acceptable on this sustainable site within the settlement limits. Proposals acceptable in terms of design, scale, layout, and landscaping. Highway team have no objections to the access and parking arrangements proposed. There's no harm or significant harm to residential amenity, and there are no material considerations that would warrant refusal of this application. So it is recommended to you for approval. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Jim. Could I ask Nicholas Barker to speak, please, if you could like to go ahead up to the table? You have 3 minutes, and I'll let you know when you have 30 seconds left.
Yeah.
Press the button on the microphone on the right to make it operate.
Mr. Chairman, council members, good morning. I'm Nick Barker. I'm the owner of 15 Armada Way, which is the right-hand house as you approach that access that's been discussed. I've also been in close consultation with the Jemima and Chris Catlin of 17 Armada Way on the left. We're of one voice, and they have given me permission to speak my words on their behalf as well. The fundamental problem and the primary objections that we have arise purely from that access, based on increased risk to personal safety, property, and potential damage to infrastructure as well. And that's because the access is narrow, it has a jink in it, the visibility is extremely poor, and it's single right of way only, as in one vehicle only. Large vehicles, there's very little room for manoeuvre other than to reverse back out of there. And the access itself is over the pavement, a very busy pavement that is used by people accessing the schools nearby, the bowls club, the new dance studio, Sandringham Fields, many children involved in that. It's already busy with a number of cars parked, and the increase in the traffic for build, the increase in traffic for residents there, in addition to all of the standard deliveries, services, etc., despite what the highways have said, we believe is untenable and represents an intolerable risk to personnel, people, to cyclists, pedestrians, particularly those with mobility issues, children, of which there are many in the area. It also represents risk of damage to our property and vehicles that are parked alongside there, and even the access in and out of the houses from numbers 15 and 17, which access directly onto that particular part there. With the proposed development, when the 4 houses, people are coming out of that development, they can't see what's on either side of them until the actual driving position is completely outside the existing farmyard, the walled farmyard now. You've got cars coming from both sides, potentially, pedestrians coming from both sides, potentially. That represents a significant risk in our view. Finally, is the emergency vehicles, which would need access to that.
You have 30 seconds left.
Thank you very much. Implications on Armada Way are as I said, considerable amount of parking, the service vehicles getting their deliveries, etc. At bin day, bins which are going to be placed on the pavement there, and you have a problem. And the final objection is there's been no indication from the developer of any risk mitigation to damage to the infrastructure beneath the access.
Time is up.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Could I now please ask Chris Farmiloe to speak? Go ahead, press the microphone on the button on the right of the mic.
It's on. Good morning. My name's Christine Farmiloe. I'm not used to speaking in public, but I feel compelled to say it's crucial that I at least implore you to re-examine your decision on the matter of access and exit via Armada Way. Our objection still stands with regards to the impact of the proposed development on neighbouring properties. As far as I can see, the Highways Department have not done their job to the fullest extent, as they have concentrated on the collection of refuse off the development, which is currently not going to happen and is not needed. The refuse collection requirement for the pinch point access is now irrelevant with regards to the Highways Department's view of the lorry's need for access for bins to be placed in Armada Way or Balmoral Crescent. I wish they would have looked in more detail at the impact of exiting the new development instead of just the accessibility. The widening of the gateway by 300mm for a lorry will not resolve the problem of visibility for any of the residents and will be extremely difficult for all concerned. The 6-foot-high wall, which encloses the development and the existing parking areas, will obstruct the view completely on both sides of the gateway. There will be potentially 27 vehicles on using the same pinch point, and not one of them has a good view of approaching cars leaving the premises at the same time. There is no acknowledgement nor mention of this whatsoever in the summary of recommendations. More consultation and communication have taken place with other parties, such as the Ramblers, Tree Conservation, Wildlife, Flood, Rights of Way, etc. And at no time have we been approached by anyone connected with Highways Department, and no one has reached out or spoken to the residents or their families who are directly involved with how the development will impact their ability to safely exit from their premises every day. A pinch point at that gateway, as shown in photographs presented to the Planning Committee, must be considered as a matter of urgency, as I can only imagine the impact for all concerned. In reality, it is quite a dangerous situation and the need to resolve it is imperative. One point I would like to make is that there is a resident who needs a mobility scooter and they drive past that gateway every single day. There are people who
Have 30 seconds.
walk,
Chris.
cycle or put out their bins that need to navigate that pinch point area. Also, a new gateway is being placed at the side of property number 5. And what is to stop the public using this as a shortcut, ignoring the existing public pathway? This will potentially increase the footfall, therefore potential accidents at the pinch point. Consideration must be given to all concerned. Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Now, could I ask Tom Knott to speak in support of the application, I believe? Go ahead, you have 3 minutes.
Good morning. My name is Tom Knock from Western Design Architects, agents for this application. The subject of this application is to demolish the existing dairy farm building and erect 6 new dwellings. Our application followed a detailed pre-application consultation for 7 new dwellings on the site. We took the planning officer's comments on board, reducing the unit numbers and rearranging the site to provide additional landscaping. During the current planning application, we consulted with the case officer, making changes to the proposal to address consultee comments and concerns. Subsequently, the proposals have been recommended for approval. We understand the application was called in due to objection from Town Council, and we offer the following clarification on these points. Overdevelopment. The case officer has confirmed in his report that the layout of the development is acceptable and certainly not overdeveloped. We agree with his statement that the proposal is well designed with a far lower density than all surrounding developments on Armada Way and Sandringham Crescent. The neighbouring areas have approximately 52 dwellings per hectare, whereas we are providing a density of around 30 dwellings per hectare. Vehicle access. Dorset Council officers have no objection with the proposals, and the case officer is satisfied that access for a further 5 dwellings does not constitute a significant level of additional vehicular use, considering the level of current use. This access currently serves 11 parking spaces, as well as a legal right-of-way for vehicle access to the agricultural farmyard for tractors and lorries, which is the fallback for the applicant. Bins. Only 2 additional dwellings will be relying upon the roadside of Armada Way for bin collection, and the council's waste policy manager has no concerns with this. Landscaping. Our landscaping plan shows that the hedging along the border with the footpath will be reinforced, and it is in the applicant's interest to do this for the privacy of the gardens to units 5 and 6. With the addition of 6 new heavy standard trees, the footpath will become a higher quality, well-maintained green corridor, more so than it was previously. The application also proposes the replacement of poor quality Leylandii hedging around the farmhouse curtilage with pleached limes and walling,
You have 30 seconds.
lending a
left.
more verdant backdrop to the proposed development and local setting. So in summary, the proposal before you is a safe, well-designed scheme, one recommended for approval by the case officer following statutory consultations. We trust that the committee can grant planning approval for these 6 new dwellings. Thank you for considering our comments.
Thank you, Tom. Jim, would you be able to come back with any salient comments regarding the comments made?
Here's the main bone of contention with this application with regards to the access, and to reiterate a bit, I don't have an objection to it. Looking at the plan, each of these dwellings has 2 off-street parking spaces, plus 2 visitor parking spaces in this location here. This is the site of a sustainable location which will encourage walking to services within the town. It's well served by public footpaths and utilities. It may be the case I need to hand over to my highway colleagues to discuss further the pinch point in this location here, which seems to be the main benefit, as well as the wall here, which residents suggested that sheer visibility on egress. Thank you.
Thank you. If you could go ahead, finally from Highways, Enrico. Thank you.
Pinch point I can address is at 3.9 metres, which actually meets the building regulations requirements. So that's something that's the reason why we could not look at refusing that on those grounds. It actually met the requirements, so hence why we went ahead and advised that it's acceptable. The actual wall, where we got the visibility issues, I can go back to the developer and probably recommend that the wall could be lower, but only 2 metres back from where the entrance is, on both directions. So you've got that wall there, and obviously the wall where the parking spaces are, which gives a better visibility for people exiting to be able to see any vehicles that are moving in and around that forecourt coming out. So again, as I said, that's something that I can deal with.
Yeah.
Okay.
I've just something marked from the entrance in respect to the wall, so we could add a condition requiring details of the wall to be lowered to address that point.
Yeah.
Excellent. That's great. Thank you very much for that. Okay, so now I think we'll go on to questions from the members. So I'll go around in turn. Councillor David Taylor, do you have any questions on this application?
Thank you, Chair. Councillor David Taylor from Johnson Merry Ward and also Vice Chair of this planning party. 2 things I've been on about the factors like things like pinch was one, which we've covered. That's fine. Well, not one there. Also the Dorset Wiltshire Fire Service, no objection, which is good. But the thing that hold me was the archaeology. Now I know that Steve Wallace has been on this and looked at the fact that there possibly be some patina or condition in case of future works there to see that there could be investigative works, because it is quite a prominent site of Dorchester and it would be a key site. So that would be my first one, that one to see the archaeology is looked at in detail or a decent report is put in on that. The secondary one was the fact that the footpath problem. I've seen the senior ranger, David Ackley, raised a concern on the footpaths during construction or when the spirit site was it to go ahead. Do we have cover on the footpath to make sure it is open and accessibility is full at all times? Thank you. That's 2 questions.
Okay, thank you for that, David. So first question about archaeology.
Yeah, condition 12 covers archaeology, so the applicant had to submit a scheme investigation prior to any work taking place on the site. We have a desktop study thus far, which didn't suggest there was going to be significant archaeological interest, but they will have to provide an scheme investigation in discharge condition 12 prior to commencement. In terms of the footpath officers' comments, we will have the informative that the footpath will actually remain open and protected for construction activity, particularly with terrace fencing on that eastern boundary.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. That satisfies that question. Councillor Rideout.
Thank you, Chair. I'm Belinda Rideout, representing Gillingham Ward and Villages. Waste collection, Jim, can you just confirm, please, where do the dwellings 3, 4, 5 and 6 place their bins? Because I note from another application they shouldn't have to take them no more than 30 metres from their homes, as per Dorset Waste Guidance. Could you just confirm, please?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Units 1 and 2 will present their waste for collection at this point in our way. The remaining units, 3, 4, 5 and 6 will present theirs on about a mile away from this location here. So there's a pedestrian route through here where bins can be brought to. So Unit 6 has a gate here in this location, so it's not too far to track that bin to that location.
Thank you, Chair. How far might that be in metres?
I think it's assuming the bin is put in this kept in this location here, it's probably about 40 metres maybe. But the refuse off the waste manager hasn't raised the objection to that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, is that all right? Councillor Jeans.
No questions for me, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Major.
Not at this moment. Been answered so far. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Fry.
Thank you, Chair. I want to look at the access again in a bit more detail there, because I've said, and I think we all have to accept, that there is a fallback position for the agricultural vehicles to use that access. But that was possibly at a time when the other houses hadn't been constructed, when that was last used. Yeah. Does that change the dynamics there? Because the houses weren't there when the agricultural access was last used. Agricultural vehicles tend to be bigger than cars and a bit more noticeable when you're going through there. And I accept the condition that the wall may be lowered, and I welcome that potential condition. I think that will make a difference. But you've still got that narrow access through there for cars coming through. 6 houses, possibly 12 or so cars. Can the officer explain, please?
Okay, thank you for that. But also we have to take into account the fallback and how much traffic that would generate. You could answer that, please, Jim.
Although the farm, I'm not sure when the farmyard was last used as such, but that is the exact position. The applicant could fall back on that land because to use the sites for farming purposes, and obviously agricultural vehicles have got larger in recent years. It's, you know, we could not control the number or size of vehicles that could potentially use that access mile away for agricultural use. But this proposal represents an acceptable way to redevelop the site in the view of the council officers. The access is acceptable subject to the conditions that we have, plus the lowered wall condition.
Thank you, Chair. And who owns the access from the red line of the site off to a mile away? Who owns that particular land? Is that public highway? Because that's paved there, so who actually owns that? Who's the right to access?
I don't know who owns it, but I know the applicant has a right of access across that point, across the areas from the farmyard. The red line application for the application goes right to our debate.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Wood.
No questions.
Thank you. Councillor Jones.
Thank you. I just wanted to pick up on Councillor Fry's one. With in terms of the ownership of the access, who's actually going to be maintaining that? Because I think that needs to be sorted. I don't think it should be left in the air. I think we need to know who.
Sorry, what exactly do you believe needs sorting?
Yeah, maintenance.
This is the access. Could you come back to that?
I'm advised that the access is in private ownership. It's not an adopted highway. So the maintenance of the access will be private. Will need to come as a private legal arrangement between the applicant plus the existing owners of Armada Way. We benefit from that access also. So it's had to be a private arrangement between those parties that use the access.
Is that something that should be conditioned or just left in abeyance?
No, that's a private legal matter between the parties involved. Planning can't get involved with that kind of thing.
Okay. Is that okay, Councillor Jones, for the moment? Councillor Vitali.
Chairman, James Vitali, Stortford Manor Ward. It's been mentioned and observed several times, but I think the crux of this application is the access to the site. I think in many ways the rest of the proposal is fairly exemplar. So I just want to drill down into that a little bit more. First of all, were alternative accesses to the site considered? I'm looking at the site plan. It doesn't look like any other would be possible, but were they considered either by the applicants or by highways? Secondly, on the mitigation measures, are there any other measures or conditions that could be applied to this permission? We've got the lowering of the wall, which seems like a appropriate intervention, but mirrors, for example, off Armada Way. Any other further mitigations that could be applied as conditions at that access?
Okay. Jim?
Insofar as alternative access is concerned, the site, one unit is accessed on the north separately, so it's only 5 of the units that are going to be accessed from Armada Way. Really, the whole site would prove quite difficult to access the whole site purely from the north. It would reduce the density of developments significantly below that, which it currently is, which is already quite a low density compared to what surrounds it. So the access, there is no other alternative other than from Armada Way, really. In terms of mitigation, the additional wall condition is a benefit, but the highways team have outlined several highway conditions, including that the parking and serving areas within the site must be forthcoming before occupation of the development, which means that there won't be any reversing movements from the site itself to egress onto Armada Way. So really, we've done all we can to make the development acceptable in the eyes of officers.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Vitali. Does that address your question?
Yes, sufficient. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Apothecary.
Thank you, Chairman. Val Apothecary, member for Gillingham Ward and Villages. I'm really on the same theme as everybody else, I believe, Chairman. It's I don't see that I don't have a problem with overdevelopment as such. I do have a problem with the access. I'm concerned about large vehicles accessing the site just with building materials. To get into a site like this, to build with cement mixers and all this thing, I think that's going to be really tricky. I would like to know, would the pavement be removed to show that it's designated vehicle use? At the moment, with the picture, if we could go back to probably the first one, showing the access entrance. Could we do that, please?
Yes. Okay, thank you. Sorry? Yes, I wonder, Steve, if you could address that. I do remember you saying that.
I just wanted to get the picture up if it was possible.
In terms of access by construction, there's construction management condition put in there, and I would have thought it would be sensible to phase this development such that Unit 6 comes forward last, and all construction traffic could come by the north rather than through Armada Way. And I can see that the agents are nodding that would be the case. So there would be no construction traffic going through Armada Way.
Okay, thank you. Could you show the first photograph we saw, please, showing the entrance?
Yes, could you put that up, please?
That's it there. You see, at the moment we've got pavement running along there, which makes it look actually like a domestic drive to number 15. I believe it's number 15. And if the whole situation were to change, that surely that should the pavement should be removed, so that anybody approaching, certainly pedestrians, would know that they didn't have the right of way as such, that would be regular use for vehicles. So I'm concerned about the safety of that aspect.
Okay, thank you. Can I refer this to Steve?
Thank you, Chair. In answer to your first point, Councillor Pothcary, you've got a dropped curb crossing that we can see there. We quite regularly employ these on residential estates to give predominance to the pedestrians walking along the carriageway.
Yeah.
And to alert obviously drivers that they're accessing onto a low speed environment. So the access, as far as we're concerned, in terms of construction is fine. With regards to the construction traffic, as Jim mentioned to you, we'll have a CTMP submitted, which we need to agree with the applicant. And if the alternative means or the preferred means of accessing the site isn't from Armada Way, then we could actually ensure that that's put within the CTMP. With regards to the access itself, the 3.9 metre width that Mr. Di Marino mentioned is the building regulation requirement for a fire tender to get in. So we've got that security. The minimum width for 2 cars to pass is 4.1 metres. So 2 cars can't pass there. But as far as we're concerned, that's a good thing. It's a traffic calming measure. You'll see on residential streets that we put in now, we might even look at one later in Shaftesbury, 3.9 metres is the minimum width that we look for a narrowing on a carriageway to ensure that drivers exercise care and caution. So as long as the intervisibility is good, which it is, when you exit this site, you can see the pinch point, you can see the access of vehicles coming in from Armada Way. We feel that that is appropriate and safe. It acts as a positive feature as far as we're concerned. So hopefully that's just confirms where we are with this. But I think they're important points that you've actually made. But when we're coming to grounds that we could recommend refusal on highway safety grounds, we don't feel that we have them. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Steve. Councillor Pothcary.
Sorry. Thank you. Just one more comment, really. Looking at this entrance again, if we had a car accessing and one exiting, one is going to end up in the front garden, wasn't it, of number 15? Obviously, because there isn't room for 2 cars. So what I, as far as I can see, is the front garden to number 15. Is going to be continually having cars waiting their turn to go in and out, and possibly an awful lot of rubbish bins on collection day. Just a comment, really. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Councillor Pothcary. I understand that the rubbish bins and the waste will not be stored necessarily there on that access road. They'll be stored elsewhere. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Sorry, put out elsewhere.
There's been storage in this location for these 2 dwellings, quite close to the drag point, and the other dwellings will have in curtilage been arranged and so to speak. Assuming we didn't remove their bits up, the collection should be just the collection where bins are stored on. I might have found more present.
Okay, thank you for that. Councillor Jesperson.
Sherry Jesperson, Hillthorpe and Upper Tarrantwood. Just following on from that point with the bins. So where do the people from number 21, 17, 15 and 11 put their bins on bin day?
I haven't been that bin day, but I would assume they would need to take their bins from their really curtilage to a mile away. So most of these properties on Armada Way need to present on a mile away.
Right, so there's bins all the way along Armada Way, outside number 15 and number 11 and number 17, etc. And then there's bins from the 4 of these houses, 2 of those houses. And where are those bins going to go?
The bins from these 2 houses.
Yes.
As well, yeah. So.
Okay, right in the line of where the traffic's coming in and out. On the pavement, but traffic crosses the pavement to get in at that point. So what happens when there's bins and a waste bin from two houses and a car wants to come in and out of that space?
It's the existing situation represented there now. When
From
cars egress in the back, these are the properties have the car parking areas in the rear. I presume when they come out of the rear parking courtyard, what bin collection there will be bins in the road. So it's not. It's not.
okay, so the existing the houses already put their bins there.
Yeah,
Is that what you're saying?
It's about 10 miles away. It's the bin collection. Yeah.
Yes, could Hannah just come in to this, please?
Thank you, Chair. The questions regarding the bin collection is obviously important that there is provision for the dwellings. It is quite a normal arrangement to have groups of bins on the highway, slightly removed from where the dwelling is on collection day. There's adequate space there for people to place their bins so they don't obstruct the highway. And that's what they need to do. So you shouldn't be putting your bin if you know in the middle of the highway. There's enough room to move them off the highway so cars can still manoeuvre past them, but people can still put their bins where they'll be collected. So important questions to raise, but not insurmountable in terms of how it would work on bin collection day. Thank you.
Thank you,
Mr. Chairman. That was exactly what I
Councillor
wanted to know.
Jess
Thank
Preston,
you very much.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Cooper.
Thank you, Chairman. What I would like to ask is, select 6 dwellings, but what are 2, 3 or 4 bedroom properties? And how many bedrooms in total have we in the 6 dwellings? I might have missed it, but
okay, thank you.
How many we've got in that 6 dwellings? Because depending on the size of the dwellings, it depends on the number of vehicles using it and parking and all that. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you.
They are, for the most part, 3-bed dwellings, or 6. They are all 3-bed dwellings.
So we've got 18. Okay.
Yes. Yeah. Okay, thank you. I think now we're going to move into the debate. Please, could Councillor David Taylor speak?
Can I ask you a question, Roger?
Yes, of course.
Skipped over, thank you, Councillor David Taylor, Chancellor Mary Ward, and Vice Chair of this panel. You mentioned very, very briefly in the conversation about the construction coming from the north of the properties. Can I go into that a bit more? Because there's very contention on this, and I know why. Can you bring that back up? That there is the top north eastern side. Can you see where the little strip going out towards the railway bridge, I think it is, on that one there. Now, if I know this because this has been in the previous application, where the fact that the access was trying to Peach Point to come in from that area and it was refused. So therefore, where is the construction going to come in?
Yeah. So the question is, where is the construction access?
And then therefore come through.
Is it going to be adequate?
Away, and I'm sorry, but that doesn't add up.
Okay, thank you. So if I could refer this back to Jim.
I've been to that location on the access from the north. It's quite a generous access in terms of the radii access by construction traffic. I don't think it presents a problem for construction vehicles to come through, obviously on a temporary basis during the course of construction. I'll just show you that. This is the access through to the site from the north. I mean, it won't be restricted in terms of vehicle limits or what can access the site implementation.
But it's not a permanent access, is it? After
It won't be permanent, just even the
construction period. Sorry, that's good. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. Councillor Vitali.
Very sorry, Chair. And one more question. I think it's worth considering. I would appreciate a view from the highways team. Is the nature of the access to this site kind of unique, or is it the sort of thing you'd see in lots of infill development applications? Is this kind of common ground when you're trying to increase the density of an existing dense area, or are these challenges kind of unique to the site?
Thank you.
Each case dealt with on its merit. Sometimes we have access issues, and they will have had some in previous communities where access and parking have been bones of contention with applications. If they're clearly unacceptable, then we will resist them. In this instance, we've looked at it carefully, discussed it as officers. We presented it to you today as in a public forum, and we believe it's acceptable in this instance based on firm merits.
Thank you, Jim. Any other comments? Councillor Major?
Move on to debate. I would like to, Chair.
Sorry?
I'd like to move on to debate, Chair, if that's possible.
Yeah.
Thank you. So this is my patch, and I know myself and other ward councillors have visited this site a lot. I don't have any problem with the overall development of it. I think it's a fairly good design. But for me, the access, like everyone else, is the biggest issue. And for the residents in particular on Armada Way there. But I don't see that there's any, as we've been recommended by officers, there's no reason to refuse it on those grounds.
Okay, any other comments? Councillor Rideout?
Chairman, Belinda Rideout, Gillingham Ward in the villages. As my colleague has just said, on balance, listened to everything, looked at everything. I'm fairly happy with this proposal. Obviously, the access is an issue, but if the wall can be lowered by 2 metres going back by condition, I think that would be really good. And if there's no construction traffic coming through from Armada Way, then it's another plus. And if that can be conditioned through the CTMP. I love the chimneys, that gives character to the build. My only thing that I'm not so happy with is the bin collection. And I think they're all going to have to be very good neighbours and put their bins in correctly for it all to work well. But as I said, on the whole, I'm pretty happy with this application. I'd be happy to second the proposal.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other comments?
Chair.
Councillor Fry.
Just to explain, I'm just a little bit confused on this. Councillor Leicester, Dorchester West, that the house 6, the access will be from the north, have its own separate access. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Yes, that is correct. And it's just regrettable that the developers haven't used that area to main their main access, because that would have resolved all our concerns, and that potentially could have put that other house down on where houses 3, 4, and 5 are, and made a terrace or something there. That to me is regrettable. It would have taken away. I think the site is right for development. I take the access issues, but again, on what we have in front of us, we have to consider planning reasons why we make our decisions. And there's no valid planning reasons, having heard the highways comments, but I'm sorry that we can really refuse this. I'm with you on the fact that its access is not good, not ideal, but we have to follow planning rules and guidelines.
Okay, thank you for that. Jim, is there any method of accessing the site from the north?
We consider the scenics in front of us, which is deemed to be acceptable as far as access is concerned. So one unit is access from the north, which gives the interior of the site of urgency and landscaping and trees that are retained. And in the view of officers, is acceptable as it is.
So access for householders would still be via Armour Way. You could not ever change that to be accessed from the north. It doesn't lend itself to that change.
It's not about making a much more cramped forward development, in my view.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments? Councillor Fry?
I'm looking at house 6 there to the left, down on the corner where there's an arrow. That looks like an area of garaging. What's that area above it there? Is that the new Duffy development going in there?
Right, Chairman.
If you're looking to the left of house 6, yeah, go left there.
Yeah.
What's that area in there? Is that the new Dutchy development going in?
this area is falling to the farmhouse, which would be taken as it is, so
Yeah.
that's unaffected, but there's a development proposed in this area here. And also access from the north. One unit we access from the north and I believe it's 6 from into the car park and the Bowls Club. So this area would be the Dutchy proposal.
And I mean, I accept that we have to look at the development before us, the application, we can't go outside that. Is there any room mitigation to access the houses 3, 4 and 5 from Barnwell Crescent? I think the bottom one down there.
No, I mean, that goes through some protected tree by TPO, so if you take those out, you can access it from Balmoral Crescent. They'd have to go across the party land to do it, so there is no access available to the applicant from Balmoral Crescent.
Okay, any other comments or suggestions? Councillor Cooper.
Barry Cooper, Winterbourne North. My two concerns are the waste bins and the collection and where they're kept, because in the officer, the policy manager for the waste, he says there's going to be about 12 bins there for collection, and I just think, where are they going to, they're going to obstruct the traffic coming in, bound to, I would have thought. So that's my one concern. And my other concern is being, 6 3-bedroom properties, there are going to be a lot of movements in vehicles, and, that access where it's very narrow, that's my concern as well, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Cooper. Anyone else? Do we have any kind of proposal as to how to move forward with this one? Councillor Major.
Going back to my comments earlier, Chair, that was a proposal really to.
Sorry, was that to grant planning permission or to refuse it?
Yes, to grant it, because I don't feel, sadly, we don't have any grounds, planning material to deny it.
Okay, and Councillor Rideout seconds that. So therefore, I think we need to go to a vote now. So every one of the, but there is a condition.
Yep. The highway.
Anna's telling me that there's a condition.
Yep.
Please, could you explain that?
Sorry.
Yeah, so it's the wall lowering condition that we discussed.
Yes. Okay, just so that it's clear. So we have a proposer and a seconder. Please, could we take that to the vote? All of those in favour? 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9. So I got 9 in favour. Those against?
I'll abstain.
Okay, so this application has decided.
Anybody wants to abstain?
Anybody wants to abstain? So anyone who wants to abstain? Thank you for that. So I believe I've got 2 abstentions. Therefore, this planning application P/FUL/2024/00246 has been decided by the committee to be granted. So thank you for that. Now we'll move on to the next item of the agenda. Yeah. This is planning reference WD/D/19/001344. It's for 10 new affordable homes at Littlefield, Sherborne, and it will be presented by Hannah. There are no speakers either against or for this application from the public. Thank you, Hannah. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. The application is for 10 dwellings located in Sherborne. The application went to committee previously some time ago in 2020 and was referred to look at the highway, the parking arrangement and level of parking, which I'll explain a bit later. It was then further delayed because in the intervening period, the issue with the Somerset levels hydrologic catchment arose in relation to needing to secure nutrient neutrality through development. And that's why this has taken some time to come back to committee, and it's before you today. So the application is in the development boundary of Sherborne, as you can see here, in a sustainable location. The site formerly had single-storey garage blocks on it, which have now been demolished. This is what the site looks like today, having been cleared. There's vehicle access in this location here, in Littlefield. There was previously access through the site, and you could drive through to Noble Road. It's not proposed to have access through at this point, but it is appropriately served by the single vehicle access here in highway terms. So this is the site plan showing what it looked like when the garage blocks were in place. You can see that most of the site was covered by these garage blocks, which served the surrounding developments, a development in Ridgeway, but no longer in use. And again, you can see here the garage blocks in the linear form. Surrounding developments, a mix of two-storey development here in Littlefield and Note Road, some flats here, and bungalows along in Ridgeway here. A very residential context in terms of the surrounding development. So this is the. Oh. It's not happy face.
So it looks like it's something to do with the display. It's coming up still on this computer. So it looks like it's an IT issue here locally with that projector.
Yeah, good. Not like
No. Thank you.
Thank you. So this is the proposed housing layout. You can see 10 dwellings. These are here are maisonettes, so 2 maisonettes here, and the rest are terraces of 2-storey dwellings. Each property has its own private garden with adequate amenity space provided for the size commensurate with the dwelling. The parking level of parking is more than sufficient. So there's sufficient parking for each individual property privately allocated. There's 2 visitor spaces, and there's also additional spaces provided for the wider community, 6 spaces here, which is over and above the normal calculator. And this came out of comments from the last committee, and one of the reasons why it was deferred. I'll just show you the previous layout so you can see it hasn't changed dramatically, but you can see there's slightly less green space as a result of that. This is what was presented beforehand. But the current layout does still retain some street trees. And compared to the current site, which you'll see at the moment, there is an enhancement in terms of the level of planting that's now proposed. So you can see here there's a table that would be provided traffic calming curb area here for pedestrian accessibility in this location here. And you can see, just make out in this location by plot 1 here, and in this location by plot 8 here, there's bin stores. So people would be able to move their bins to an appropriate collection point. There's room here for these maisonettes to put their bins in this location here. And also they can store them in their garden area because there's storage and bin stores and sheds for bicycles in plots for the dwelling houses. There's actually an access here, so people will be able to come out of their rear gates and take their bins to this area here on collection day. So in terms of the elevation treatments, there's nicely designed in terms of the context of the site, chimneys proposed, porches, and some brick detailing with some brick coursing. to reflect this, there is some brick porcelain in the wider area. But the level of design is good and would be in keeping with the area in Sherborne as a whole. So these are plots 1 to 5, and this plot here is handed so that it faces the access as you come in, which provides quite a nice public realm. So you can see on the site plan, it's this plot here. So as you come in, some thought's been given to the public realm, and you're not just looking at a side of dwelling here, it's actually fronting onto the access road, which from an urban design point of view is a nice feature on such a relatively small site. It's been well thought out. This is plot 6 to 8. There's a condition to ensure that there's no windows inserted on the side elevation of plot 6. That's one of the suggested conditions, PD removal here to protect the amenity of the surrounding area. And this is the maisonettes, plots 9 and 10. And there's a condition to ensure that there's obscure glass on the rear elevation of the spot here. So these are the street scenes. You can see that there's room at the front of the dwellings for some sort of shrubs and planting, and where there is an opportunity, trees in the street have been incorporated to soften the development. These are the typical floor plans, which show that they're accessible units and they're up to acceptable space standards. I'm just going to go through some photographs, which are a mixture of when the garage blocks were there and now with the site being cleared. So this is the view from Littlefield, looking towards the site, which with the garage blocks cleared. This is the view from Noak Road, looking across the site. This is what it looked like when the garage blocks were on the site. So it's a very sort of hard surface urban area, lifted in the way of no trees, and predominantly used for parking. And you can see the properties beyond here and the relationship they would share with the proposed houses. There's another view across the site with the garages in place still. This is the entrance from Littlefield with the grass verges. So this is the main entrance vehicle and pedestrian into the site. And this is a view looking towards the neighbouring properties in Littlefield. The dwellings are located so that their garden areas would adjoin the existing garden areas to provide some separation. And although there would be some degree of additional overlooking between the properties, it's not considered to be unacceptable in this sort of context. Sufficient distance has been provided between the dwellings to preserve amenity at acceptable levels. This again is looking towards Ridgeway, so the bungalows here. And their amenity is safeguarded by having parking along that boundary with the plots 9 and 10 with no windows overlooking. This is a view looking towards Noak Road again. And this is a view looking towards the cemetery and beyond in the open space, looking past the existing flats that join the site. So in terms of the key planning considerations, the principle of development is acceptable. It's within the development boundary of Sherborne in a sustainable location and a main town. The development's proposed to be brought forward at 100% affordable housing. So it's beyond the policy requirements, significant benefit of the proposal that it would be 100% affordable housing. A mix of rented and shared ownership units. But that would be set out in the section 06 if the application was successful, that it is 100% affordable housing. In terms of the nutrient neutrality issue that I mentioned earlier, the development has to mitigate its impacts in terms of additional phosphorus into Poole Harbour. And this has been the reason why the application was delayed for some time. There is now a third-party credit schemes that are coming forward. There needs to be a Section 33 agreement to secure those credits because they're outside of the Dorset Council area. So legal are currently working on that overarching Section 33 agreement, And once that is in place, we can attach the pre-commencement condition, which is in the recommendation, which ensures that those credits are purchased prior to the commencement of the development. And provided that happens, the development would mitigate its impacts in terms of nutrient neutrality. In terms of highway impact and parking, it's considered to be acceptable. There's more than sufficient parking provided, there's bin stores provided, and the highway arrangement looks satisfactory to serve the development. Residential immunity would be safeguarded through the way the development's laid out and the planning conditions that remove permitted development rights and require steel glazing. The landscaping in what's possible is considered to be acceptable, and there's a condition that requires landscaping should take place, and the ecology impacts of the proposal are considered also to be acceptable. So in terms of conditions, this is just a list of the conditions. One to note being the requirements for nutrient neutrality, the pre-commencement condition, which is required to ensure that those credits are purchased once the overarching legal agreement's in place. There's construction environmental management plan, having regard to the fact that there's residential development surrounding the site, surface water drainage conditions and management, parking conditions. The external materials have already been submitted and are acceptable. The applicant uses a modular type building construction, but that doesn't sort of diminish the quality, as you can see from the elevational drawings, and we have those details and they're considered to be acceptable in this context. Because of the previous use of the site for garages, there are contaminated land conditions on there and a requirement to ensure that the site's developed safely in view of the fact there could have been asbestos on the site because of the garages. The PD removal on the side elevation of plot 6 for any new first floor windows, and the first floor windows on the rear elevation of plot 9 to be permanently obscured glazed. Drop clear provision, and then construction working hours and details of soil filling materials because of the past use of the site. And subject to those conditions, the application is recommended for approval, subject to the completion of the Section 106 agreement to secure the affordable housing. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Hannah. Just for clarity, the nutrient mitigation is for the Somerset levels, isn't it? Not for Poole Harbour.
Did I say Poole Harbour?
Yes.
No apologies for that. It's not Poole Harbour, it's the Somerset level.
Yeah, Somerset level.
Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Council members, do we have any questions? I'll start with Councillor David Taylor again. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Thanks, David Taylor, Chancellor Mary, and Vice Chair of this planning committee. Nice application, like a lot of it. And the things that the only one thing which was discussed because before was about the accessibility, because we noticed on the very first photograph was that people parked on the grass verges, which I think is a bit they're not supposed to be doing there. So I'm just basically looking at conditions for access to see that it's clean, kept clear. Can we do that?
Okay, thank you for the question.
Private land, the application.
Highways, can we ensure that those access points on the verges do not get blocked with parked cars?
Taylor, do you mean the grass verges on the photo on Littlefields, or do you mean the verges we've got here?
Yeah.
Within this, the purple bits. Well, people shouldn't park on our grass verges if they're public highway. It causes damage, is the answer.
Okay.
They are enforced. And the second question, sorry, Chair, is the fact that on the conditions that have been set out, it was mentioned at the very beginning, 100% affordability. Is that a condition?
Yes.
Yes, that would be part of the Section 6 agreement to ensure that they're 100% affordable housing. The 10 years would be set out in that as well to meet the need that's identified with our housing enabling team.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Chair.
Yes, 100% affordable. Councillor Rideout.
Councillor Rideout, Gillingham Ward and the villages. Just a quick question, if you can answer this, Hannah. Around the boundary, the rear boundary from 1 to 5, there is access to the rear gardens. I think it says 1.8 boundary treatment. Is that directly on the back of their garden? But what about the other side of the access, which is adjacent to residents, neighbouring residents? Is it going to be like an alleyway, 1.8 boundary treatment? Do you know?
Thank you, Chair. And not running along the back of plots 1 to 5. Yes, it would be a small passageway that would run along there. So there's no, it would just be fenced off with access. It's not normally for a large amount of dwellings. It's not an arrangement you particularly want to have an unobserved access way, but because in this situation it's a small amount of units and it does provide them convenient access to the bin store, it's considered to be okay overall. But from a crime point of view and for a security point of view, it's not something you always want to see in development. So I think this has been considered overall in the design, and it is beneficial in this context because of the small amount of units that are provided with that real access.
Can I just come back?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, it was just maintenance. As long as there are there's fence both sides of the plan. Because on the other side, I'm just about trees and bushes egressing over the footway and causing issues. But if there's going to be fencing,
yeah, it's not proposed to be a hedge as far as I know along there. It would be fence along there. So I suppose it would be down to the RP to keep that sort of clear if it was in a shared space.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for that. Councillor Jeans.
Deputy Shaftesbury Ward. Is the highway up for adoption? Can it be adopted? Is it in an adoptable state once it's been built?
Thank you for that.
That would be a private scheme, councillor. We wouldn't adopt that. But what we can confirm is that they carried out a sort of half analysis to prove you could get a refuse vehicle into the site and turn and come out the forward gear. So if necessary and the arrangement was agreed to Dorset Waste, then obviously that's appropriate for use. But no, we wouldn't adopt that, the internal area there, because it's got no public utility.
Does that answer your question? Councillor Major.
No questions, thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Fry.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Leslie, Dorchester West. I appreciate we've been told that there's enough parking on site for all the properties, 20 houses, 20 parking spaces. Where are the visitors going to park? I know that there's 6 general use spaces there, but I'm assuming that they will also be used by Littlefield, parking their spare cars around there. Where are Granny and Grandad going to park their cars when they come around for Christmas?
In terms of the level of parking, it wouldn't be monitored who's using the spaces, but because the development provides sufficient parking for the units themselves and visitor parking, it should be the case that those parking spaces would be free because we're going beyond what we normally require for the site. You're absolutely right. We couldn't, if people happen to have a lot of cars, there could be people parking in there from the development itself. But that again would be a benefit because they'd be taking those off of other places they might be parking around the estate. So you wouldn't be able to control the parts in it, but going beyond the level of parking we would normally require would provide additional spaces that wouldn't be there at the moment. I don't know, Steve, do you want to come in?
Well, only the fact that if that's private, it'll be up to the owner or the operator or the freeholders to ensure that those spaces were kept available for the people who lived in those units. So it'll be up to them to police who could park there or not. I think it's fair to say that historically, because the garage has been derelict for a long time, that empty cans of parking already takes place on Littlefield. So it may be that people from Littlefield would want to park in there, but people generally like to park as close to their property as possible. So I suggest it might be unlikely, but I don't think we could exercise any control over it.
Thank you, Chair. No, I get that, and I thank you for all the responses, but I just think potentially we're building up a problem that we can't solve or can't resolve, and we're going to walk away from it. But there's nothing we can do other than that, I think, at the moment. Thank you. I just want to recognise the problem.
Okay, thank you for that. Councillor Wood.
Thanks, Councillor Cole, the other board. This question about there's like disabled parking marked in the plan there. Just how that's being managed and things like that. Is that an actual part of the plan that they intend to do that, and how things enforce it? Was it more?
Okay, thank you.
Really, Chair. Thank you, Councillor. They've got 2 spaces marked. They meet with the requirements for that level of car park, and again, it would be up to the operator of the site to ensure that they're used for disabled parking only. We wouldn't be able to enforce it as an authority.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Jones.
I know that some smaller developments of affordable housing, it's not easy to find a registered provider. Do you happen to know whether there is a registered provider allocated for this one? And what would happen if we couldn't find one?
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you. Yes, Magna are the applicant, the application, so they're keen to build these units, and yes, it will be secured and delivered as far as we know through them.
And can they remain affordable in perpetuity? Can't say it. You know what I mean.
In perpetuity.
Yes, perpetuity. Yes.
That would be the requirement of the Section 106 agreement. It does depend on the tenure, because if they're shared ownership, then you can staircase up, but that's how that type of affordable housing works. But in terms of rented, they would be in perpetuity.
Thank you for that. Councillor Vitali.
Thank you, Chair. No questions from me. It's reassuring that there's an RP who wants to fill these units, but no further questions.
Thank you for that. Councillor Pothecary.
Thank you, Chairman. Sorry. First off, I'd like to say how nice it is to get an all affordable
yes.
application. It's really nice, and plenty of parking. So well done on that level. I'm really, really delighted. Dorset Police have made a recommendation about the secure by design standards regarding key lockable gates at the rear of the buildings. I don't know if anything's been done about those, so that's one. I think probably the only question I've got really. I do have concerns about the new road layout not being adopted. Maintenance responsibility will remain with the developer, residential housing company. It's my experience that there's a natural resistance to maintaining the roads, and they become a real problem with enormous potholes that nobody wants to deal with. This happens in a couple of places in Gillingham, and it's an ongoing problem. The residents won't have the money to pay residents' contributions, and I'm not sure whether the housing association would bother. So that's just an issue that I have. I think that's probably it, really. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Councillor Jesperson.
Sherry Jesper from Hillfoot and Upper Terrace Ward. I agree. I think this application is much improved on when we saw it last time, and there's a lot to like about it. But I do have two areas of concern and they have been mentioned already, but I'm not quite satisfied yet. The first is with the alley or snicket that we've created here. I think we've made something that is potentially a security risk there for the best you can have at the back of that garden is a lockable gate. I have a lockable gate, high 6 foot high lockable gate into my garden from the neighbour's garden, and only recently I happened to step out of my back door to see somebody who is making a delivery on top of my gate about to come into my garden. A lockable gate doesn't stop anybody getting in who wants to. I'm more concerned about, because there's no visibility, that's why it's an issue, and I'm more concerned about the fact that we've created a space there with no oversight, no visibility. So I am concerned. I don't like to see this. I think this is very old-fashioned. Is there anything we could do with regard to street lighting to make it more safe?
Thank you for that question.
Thank you, Chair. There is proposed to have a gate here as well, so people would have a gate to their back garden, and also in this location here and here will be a gate. So it's not. I agree, it's not an ideal setup, but the alternative would be if it wasn't there, people would have to take their bins through their house, which is also not ideal. So it's almost really a balance, what's best. And as I said, we wouldn't normally want to have an alleyway created at the back, but in this situation, to get the level of affordable housing in this location, it's considered acceptable overall. It is a small amount of units, that would be certain there, and it does create that issue of a unobserved area. But overall, if you look at the benefits of the scheme as a whole, you take it as a whole, it's considered to be acceptable. I think in terms of lighting, that would have to be sort of a private arrangement with the registered provider. We can, if it was considered necessary to make the application acceptable, require a lighting scheme. It's just, would it be appropriate in this location to have lighting installed there, and what form would that take in the alleyway? But we can condition lighting when it's deemed necessary to make an application acceptable without it. Thank you, Chair.
Go ahead.
Thank you very much. You hadn't mentioned the fact that there were gates at either end of the alley, so that does help enormously, because then it's not open to just everybody. Unless there's street lighting there, I'm not sure what lighting could do, because even if you had motion sensor lighting, it still requires the people who are in the houses at the other side of the garden to recognise that. So I think probably, unless it was street lighting, housing would probably add to the problem, because it would be set off by dogs and cats or people. But anyway, so, well, the gates at either end help. Thank you for that. My other area that I'm concerned about that has been raised, and as I say, I do like the scheme, but I'm very concerned about the parking. Could we think about whether or not the parking could be allocated? We have the unallocated parking on the other side of the tree there and the traffic calming. The likelihood is, in an area such as this, that those will be always full with neighbouring cars. They've been used to park on this space. That's what I see them being used for. And then we have the parking space. People will want to use the parking space outside of their house. I know lots of little schemes like this in my villages, and it's very, very difficult when the parking space outside of your house, which you reasonably think you have priority to use, is not available to you, especially if it's not available to you because somebody permanently parks their second car there. It causes dissent in communities. I think that's what we're building. I also think that the allocation of the two disabled parking spaces, I think we've created difficulty there for property number one, who has a parking space outside of their house that they're not allowed to use. I think we've created something there that's unnecessarily possibly contentious. If I lived in property number one, I would reasonably want to park in the parking space outside my house, and it would be empty a lot of the time because it was a disabled bay that nobody happened to need. You know, we're setting up difficulties there for these residents that will come forward. Could we look again? I'm very happy that there should be disabled parking spaces allocated, but I think allocating one of them outside number one, that I think that's a mistake. And could we consider whether these parking spaces within the space could be allocated to the houses? That's quite often done, and it does help neighbourly disagreements enormously.
Okay, thank you for that, Hannah.
Thank you for the question. Yeah, 16 of the spaces are allocated.
They are.
So they will be allocated. Sorry if I didn't make that clear.
No, you didn't. No.
So sorry.
It helps enormously.
16 of them are allocated to dwelling houses meeting the parking standards, and they will be allocated. The closest ones will be allocated to the plots closest to them. I don't know exactly, because they're just all numbered, exactly how that will work, but they would be allocated. So 16 allocated spaces, 3 unallocated spaces to serve the development, 2 visitor spaces to serve the development, and 6 unallocated spaces for the community. So the level of parking meets the parking standard, and also goes beyond it in terms of community use, which came out of the last committee meeting. In terms of planning conditions, we don't need to go so far as saying that space has to be allocated for that dwelling. That would be down to the housing association to do that sensibly, depending on the distances. But from our point of view, there's sufficient allocated, unallocated, and visitor parking to serve the development. In terms of the disabled parking, that would normally come as a result of as a user of the units requiring those.
Yes.
So we wouldn't necessarily want to remove the spaces, and it would depend on the occupiers whether that's a requirement or not in terms of the disabled spaces.
Okay, go ahead.
Nearly there, except that space 1 in this planning application is designated as a disabled space. So it would be really helpful if the planning application could say there should be 2 disabled spaces available somewhere, but to make space 1 allocated when we don't know yet who's going to live in house number 1 seems to me a mistake and not necessary. Why would we do that? So we could just specify, could we just specify that there are 2 disabled spaces allocated at the discretion of the of Magma.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Through you, Chair. Councillor Jesperson, I think the plan there just shows the number of spaces. I don't think it's showing any allocation whatsoever. So I think space number 1, which is coincidentally next to plot 1, doesn't necessarily belong to plot 1. I think they're just showing they're numerically going around in an anti-clockwise order as to the spaces. So I don't think that's indicating the allocation. As Hannah said, it would normally be down to the actual owner of the site to do the allocation. The disabled spaces have most probably been put there because, as you're well aware, you require a greater width for a disabled space to be able to get in and out of the car. So they've quite obviously put them where they've got a space alongside, if you like, to get in and out of the car. But that's not to say that other spaces couldn't be shifted around to accommodate that. But yeah, I wouldn't read anything into that drawing that indicates which house is getting which plot, which space.
Which is disappointing, because that was kind of what I was asking for, that plot 1 could be allocated to house 1 so that we overcome the difficulty of people parking in what people think of as their own parking space. I'm labouring this point, and I apologise for this, but I do think it's a thing that we might be able to do that would just improve the neighbour cohesion on this. It seems a small thing to ask that the plot 1 is allocated to house 1, plot 2 to house 2, and that overcomes the difficulty which does arise a lot where people park it in the parking bay outside someone else's house, and then so if the person who lives in plot 1 then has to park over in plot, or the person who lives in plot 6 has to park in plot 21 because somebody's always in their parking space. That's a very long way to carry the shopping and the pram and the 2 children and the dog. You know, why can't we make people's lives easier by allocating them?
Thank you for that. Is there any way, Hannah, that can be conditioned?
I think it would be difficult to say that was necessary to make the development acceptable. I think if you looked at the tests for conditions, for sufficient parking has been provided. It's really down to the registered provider to decide which space they allocate to each plot, but there are enough spaces to do that. Depending on, if there's a disabled occupier, they may need to provide spaces for those. So I think it's actually good that that's shown, because it's not always shown on housing layouts of this scale that there are any disabled parking spaces. So I think the fact they've considered accessibility is very good, because it does mean that that's provided for. We could have a condition that says a scheme for the allocation of the parking should be submitted. It would be something we could require, but I don't think it would meet the tests in policy to say, is that necessary to make this application acceptable in planning terms? And that's what we need to consider. Is it necessary? Is it reasonable when we're applying planning conditions? Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you for that. If we could move on from that one now, please, to Councillor Cooper.
Thank you. Councillor Barry Cooper, Winterbourne North. I wanted to ask a question about the demolition of the old garages. In the report, it says that it is noted in the application asbestos may be present. Now, also in that same paragraph, it says that you recommend Environment Agency and Health and Safety Executive are made aware of this application. I feel that it needs to be strengthened, and that, you know, rather than they need to be made aware of it and that the applicant refers to the guidance, it needs to be firmed up, because we're told that, you know, that the demolition and all that is close vicinity to existing residential properties, and asbestos, if it is there in any substantial amount or whatever, you know, need to be dealt with properly.
Okay, thank you for that. As far as I know, all the garages have been demolished. Are there any other things you'd like
Thank you,
to
Chair.
mention?
Thank you for the question. It's a very, very good question, because asbestos, obviously, and health is a really important consideration. There would have been the requirement through the separate legislation to ensure that when the garage was demolished, that was done in the appropriate way and all the regulations were followed. And obviously, that's already happened. The conditions that are now remaining are about soil quality and how that would be remediated in terms of the health of the people living on the site.
Okay.
So we don't have the danger of sort of asbestos going into the air through demolition anymore. But we do have the conditions to safeguard the living conditions of people longer term, to ensure the soil is appropriate and there's no residual impacts from the asbestos that may have existed. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. Now I have a couple of questions. Okay, if that's all right. Now the access road leading to the development is believed by many people locally, if we look to the left of the picture there, not on the actual development, but to the left where it says Littlefield, if you're able to move the map up, you will see a bend. Okay, I believe it's too narrow for builders' vehicles entering the development, given that it is on a bend and that there are parked vehicles there most of the time, even in the working days, because quite a lot of retired people live there. I've measured the road and it's 5.3 metres wide. And with vehicles parked, it's roughly 3 metres left, assuming a vehicle is roughly 2 metres wide. Two vehicles are therefore unable to pass at the same time, only one vehicle. So it therefore makes that into a one-lane road. And during the day, you know, vehicles parked there, including vans on that bend, because we've got people with vans who also live there. They're slightly wider than cars. The medium and larger vehicles will struggle to get through. These are the vehicles used for by the builders for development, and therefore need to drive over the curb onto the grass verge, given their length and their width. Will also create additional risk for accidents between these parked vehicles and vehicles moving through. There's a risk that did not previously exist. Magna might have a solution, though, for this. In their design and access statement, Magna admit that the access will need to be widened specifically on the bend, but there's no mention in this in the planning conditions for this application, where it's mentioned that this proposal would, in principle, be acceptable, but that separate permission is required. There's plenty of grass verge that can be used to make the road wider. This is really a good solution. Could you confirm whether or not I've understood this correctly, or if Dorset Council would end up having to widen the road?
Take that, Chair, thank you. Littlefield, as you can see on there, the Chair's dimensions, 100% correct. Vehicles park on the outside of the bend. This is the decanted parking that I mentioned earlier from garages where they no longer park. So they do park. Now that dimension is sufficient to get a car past and refuse vehicle. Obviously you couldn't get two-way flows of traffic, but it's a reasonable expectation for drivers to be approaching with care and caution. You wouldn't be driving around that bend at any speed at all. If you saw a larger vehicle there, it's a typical residential road, cul-de-sac effectively, you'd have to adjust your driving accordingly. If the question, Chair, is could we insist on them widening bend as part of this development, the advice we would give you would be no. We don't feel sufficient justification based on the traffic generated by the residential development. Now, we're all well aware that when you have construction periods, there's an element of short-term pain. There will be larger vehicles that will impact on residents. Hopefully, we keep that to a bare minimum. If there's proven to be damaged by construction vehicles on the highway verge, again, we mentioned verges earlier, then the highway authority could take action against the remedial works to get them improved. Again, if there's damage to the curbs and the like. So I think the simple answer to your question is I don't think we could justify any improvement being made off-site for this. We didn't identify it in 2020. We don't feel that it's actually necessary now. It is what it is effectively. But when the site's built and it's accessed by cars, it will be no different to how it is now. You've got to bear in mind that it's quite tidal in nature, the parking. If people are out at work during the day, their cars aren't there. Construction takes place during the day. So it is what it is effectively, but we don't justify the ask for an improvement.
Okay, thank you. I've just got one more question, so bear with me. The homes along Littlefield, just beyond that bend, residents there are currently rather worried that when the development starts, they won't be allowed to wheel their bins up to the point that you showed us earlier on the development, Hannah, because it'll be blocked off by the development activity. Can we be assured that they can still get their bins in and out of the rear of their houses? Thank you. Yes, it's along that lane there, but these houses are to the left.
Thank you, Chair. There could be, well, through the construction, they'd have to obviously have their access maintained, and that'd be a matter for the developer and the registered provider to ensure that they still have access if that's what their current arrangement is. But it goes beyond what the planning permission can really control. I don't have any further details on it apart from that.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Taylor.
Finally, Chair, it's Councillor Taylor, Chancellor Mary, and Vice Chair Planning today. Things I've noted just now, which hasn't been mentioned at all, is the environmental issue here. No electric points vehicles, no heat pumps, no anything at all regarding reusable energy. Is this being left down the application deliberately, or are we not having anything coming in for that?
Hey, thank you for that question.
Thank you, Chair. They were the comments the Town Council notes some points on that. EV charging points are now dealt with through building regulations. So building regulations require that there is EV charging provided through that route. And again, with renewables, we don't have the policy situation at the moment to be able to insist on extra sort of renewables to be installed. But these dwellings would have to be built to current building regs, which requires high levels of insulation and potentially now means of renewables to meet the levels of sustainability that are required through building regulations.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you for that. Thank you. Councillor Jeans.
Jack Jeans, Shaftesbury. Sorry, it's one more on parking bays, and I do apologise. I'm a bit perplexed by bays 9 and 10. What's the situation with that? They're sort of just above number 8 on the right-hand side there. It looks like a grass strip. What? I mean, anyone parked by number 10 is numbered. Are they relying on number 9 not being there? Or I don't understand what that situation is there. It's a bit odd.
Are you referring to the strong
bay
possibility they could be blocking one another?
What's that? I don't understand what that parking situation is at all. Because it looks like a grass strip just above it, doesn't it?
Yes.
So the issue is,
I assume that they would be tandem parking, and you'd have to see what's the comment on this.
It's tandem parking. I would hope that those 2 spaces would be allocated to a single dwelling, or it could be very awkward. It'd be touch of the butterflies for those of you who are old enough to remember the moving around. So yes, I'd hope they're allocated to the green strip, Councillor Jeans. I think is some form of landscaping that the applicants drawn nicely on this flag. A hedge or similar. I wouldn't imagine that's going to survive, to be fair.
The reason I asked is because obviously we talked at length about allocation earlier, and it suggested there may not be any. So I was a bit confused as to.
I think we're saying they will be allocated car parking. We just don't know what the allocation will actually be.
I understand, sorry.
Hopefully, number 8 would get those 2 spaces. Logic would tell you that. I think it's reasonable to expect the length to allocate parking properly. I won't comment any further.
Okay.
Fair enough. I misunderstood there, sorry.
Councillor Fry.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Les Fry, Dorchester West. Picking on Councillor Jesperson's point about the gates and access to the rear. With my previous experience, I don't like alleyways at the rear of properties. Will this development be able to apply for secured by design recognition and award, or does that negate that altogether and make it an insecure development?
Thank you, Chair. I mean, it's a really good point. I think, secured by design doesn't support this kind of approach, so it's not fully in line with that. I think, you already have the existing situation where people in Littlefield do access the properties to the rear, so you have that existing arrangement there. And it does facilitate the development on the site and allow for the bins to be easily transported to the bin store. So I can't say that it fully complies with secured by design. We haven't got a comment from police liaison person that deals with that on this particular application, and it could be that they do flag this potentially. It's whether that's a reason overall to say the whole scheme as a whole is unacceptable. An officer's opinion is that it isn't, although not ideal.
Is it possible to condition to light that alleyway at the rear there?
I think, as Councillor Jesperson said, it's difficult to know what kind of lighting you'd have along there that would be effective. But we can use lighting conditions, but it wouldn't be able to be street lighting. It'd have to be some kind of low level lighting, and I'm not certain that whether that would be easily installed in that area or not.
Okay, thank you for that. Any other comments, suggestions or proposals?
Can I propose it, please, Chair?
Councillor Jones.
Stonminster Newton. I think it's a good proposal. Nasty, 10 affordable, so I'm happy to propose.
Yes. Excellent. Okay, so if we have a vote for all those in favour. Oh, we do have a seconder. We have Councillor David Taylor, don't we? Yes. Yes. And it's proposed by Councillor Carol Jones. So if you could please go ahead and vote for those who are in favour. Okay, so I can count 11 in favour. Presumably that means there's nobody against. Could you put your hand up if there's anyone against? Anyone abstaining? Okay, thank you very much, everyone, for that. So, planning application WD/D/19/001344. The committee has decided to approve the planning permission. So that's the decision of the planning committee. Thank you very much. Yes, I think that people would appreciate a 5-minute break. So let's take one now, and we will be back at 5 minutes to Thank you, everyone. We're now resuming the meeting. It's now just about 12 midday. The next item is agenda number 7. It's planning reference P/RAS/2023/5868. That'll be presented by Kirsten Williams. It's a reserved matters applications for 155 new homes and associated infrastructure south of Gillingham and west of Shaftesbury Road. And for this application, we have one speaker speaking in support of the application. Please go ahead, Kirsten.
Thank you. As stated, this surplus application funds and existing infrastructure. The application considers access, clearing, landscaping, layout, scale. Before we begin, I just want to inform you that since sending my officer's report, we received advice from the Dorset Council Natural Environment team on the wording of conditions 8 and 9. The condition 8 has been corrected to reference the most recent version of the biodiversity M, and the wording to condition 9 has been updated to reflect a more specific reference to the maximum loss levels of light soils in dark. I'm going to start my presentation with some context and an overview of the adjacent sites and the scheme as a whole, just as a reminder. The scheme you're considering today follows the grant of outline planning permission for 961 dwellings south of Gillingham across the blue line site known as Tan Farm. The outline permission also allows for a local centre providing retail, community health and leisure uses. This is the North Dorset Local Plan Policy 21 map, the wider strategic allocation for the Gillingham Southern Extension. The Tan Farm site is here to the south, with the river corridors free from development. The yellow star is the local centre location within the Tan Farm site. There's been recent retail and business expansion across Shaftesbury Road here, including an Aldi supermarket, petrol station and a convenience store. Further east, the site is known as Park Farm, and this has outline permission 634 dwellings and a primary school. And a reserved matters application has been submitted this year for the first phase of 316 dwellings. The Lodging Lake site here is being built out for 205 dwellings, and the Brickfields employment allocation is here to the west. This is the outline approved land use plan. The site we're referring to today is identified with the red line boundary. So this is the outline approved illustrative master plan, which shows the anticipated highway routes, including the principal street, running east to west from the B3081 Shaftesbury Road to the B3092 road, new road here. The secondary route road is also shown here off the northern side. This is the approved master plan for the principal street, which was submitted under a separate planning application, and it's now due to be open to the public in early 2025. I've marked the location of the proposed 155 dwelling site with the red polygon here. The approved 34 dwelling site is marked with the yellow circle, which is currently under construction. And the approved 108 dwelling site is marked with the blue circle. The approved play space and pickup areas are then shown here with green circles, and the purple circle marks the approximate location for the recently approved 280 dwelling site. This is an aerial photo provided by our highways team for the principal street's western junction with the B3092 new road here. This is facing east of the outline site allocation across here on both sides of this road, and its southern boundary joining the Cross Street Lane along here. This is another aerial photo along the principal street to the east. I As you can see, the principal street includes stone facades, features and landscaping, but off-street parking and shared pedestrian and cycling route both sides of the road. This is a plan of the outline of Shaftesbury Road junction with the principal street. It includes a widened highway with 10-foot lanes and a signal control junction layout. Here's the proposed phasing plan for the outline of the development. So phase 1 area in orange can provide 145 dwellings. The reserve matters application for 34 dwellings being approved north of the principal street here, and another reserve matters for 108 dwellings being approved south of the principal street, joining the Hall Street Lane here. Phase 2 to the north in red, followed from towards the town boundary, was given reserve matters approval in June this year for 280 dwellings. Phase 3 is shown in green, and that's the subject of the reserve matters here before you today. Outline consent determined it could provide up to 175 dwellings. The reserve matters application before us today is for 155 dwellings. Phase 4, further west in yellow, can provide 245 dwellings. In phase 5, to the east, where the Shaftesbury Road junction can provide a local centre and up to 116 dwellings. It's worth noting that the outline up to quantum dwellings shown on this slide is fixed by the outline approval and can't be altered at reserve matters stage. So this is the approved plan for the 34 dwelling proposal located southeast of the phase 3 proposal. It also shows the approved places and kickback areas to join today's proposal, which is located over here. So this is the site plan for the 108 dwelling proposal to the south of Principal Street. And this is the site plan for the 280 dwelling proposal on the adjoining site to the east of today's application, showing connecting Loop Road that connects into today's site, which is located here. This is the approved loop road running off the northern side of Principal Street, which links phases 1, 2, and 3 and runs through the application site. This aerial imagery from Ross Explorer showing the application site edged in red, with existing road network in green and the river Loddon in orange. The Principal Street shown built out here, linking to the site's new road and Shaftesbury Road. And this is an aerial photo from our highways department again, and it's facing west from Shaftesbury Road, which you can see at the bottom of the image there. The application site is highlighted in red, and you can see the previous consented phases, phase 2 adjoining the phase 3 site, the big low pay and kickback space, phase 1 and phase 1 and the either side of Principal Street. Okay, I will now outline today's proposal in a bit more detail. So here's the site boundary on the approved outline indicative master plan. Here are some photos of typical conditions found on the existing sites, including modified grassland, number 1, number 2, recently known modified grassland, the river Loddon at number 3, and mature trees and hedgerow typically found on the site. Here's the proposed site layout comprising a total of 124 market units, 9 shared ownership units, and 22 affordable rent units. Traffic calming measures are included, including raised tables, as demonstrated by the red and grey bills. This is the proposed affordable housing layout, which totals 20% of the total proposed units. Note the section 106 agreement on the outline consent obligates the provision of 25% of affordable homes across the whole development, with a 10-year split of 50-50 between affordable rent and shared ownership. So proposals, we consider the proposals to be in line with the agreement as 25% quantum set out. So the 25% quantum was set out in Policy 8 of the North Dorset Local Plan, the strategic site allocation in Gillingham, and supported by the Gillingham Main Plan. Whilst this site provides less than the 25% required figure, it's accepted that the 25% will be made up across the wider outline of the site. The housing is distributed at 3 different locations through the site, facing onto the public open space to the north, either side of the secondary loop road adjoined into phase 2, and on facing onto the principal street itself. This plan shows the proposed building heights over the application site. The outlined approved building heights plan permits dwelling heights up to 3 stories along the north-western edge facing the river lodging corridor and the south-facing edge of Principal Street. This reduces to 2.5 stories for the rest of the site. The proposed apartment building, which is here, is the only 3-story element proposed and situated facing onto the loop road. It mirrors a similar 3-story apartment block building already consented on the adjoining phase 2 site. The proposed scale is considered to be in line with the parameters set at outline and complies with policy 721 and 24 of the North Dorset Local Plan, the Gillingham Neighbourhood Plan, and the Gillingham Town Design Statement. This plan shows the proposed street hierarchy, with the primary street running here along the south side. The secondary loop road is shown in light blue, linking the site to the primary street and into phase 2. Lanes, shown in orange, run off the secondary street, leading into the development edges. This plan shows proposed parking provision of 334 allocated parking spaces, including 289 driveways or allocated parking bays and 45 garages. A further 33 visitor spaces are distributed throughout the site. The proposals result in a total of 2.38 spaces per dwelling. This plan shows the extent of the highway anticipated to be adopted. In consultation with the Highway Authority, some changes have been made to its layout, and the geometry of the layout now complies with the guidance provided by Manual for Streets and is considered broadly suitable for public adoption. Note that it is expected that further traffic calming measures will be introduced for this section of the road through the Section 38 agreement process, and a Stage 1 safety audit is to be submitted in due course. Refuse collection has also been fully considered with provision of vehicle tracking and bin collection points. The proposed residential development will continue to avoid development in flood zones 2 and 3, plus the climate change sensitivity buffer. Surface water attenuation will be achieved by attenuation basins, permeable paving, and cellular storage. The council's flood risk management team raised no objection to these measures. These are the proposed street scenes. Street scene A, which is split into 2, shows the dwellings fronting onto the principal street with a varied height and type of dwelling. Street scene B shows a greater number of terrace dwellings fronting onto the secondary street loop road, creating a more dense and urban character area. Street scene C shows the dwellings fronting onto the public open space to the north, as predominantly 2 detached and 2-story in form. Here's the material site plan. Some dwellings have double frontages at appropriate corner plot locations, and some along the principal street have chimney features to add variation and character. The material palette is varied and includes a mixture of brown, red, and yellow stock brick elevation, along with light render, brown vertical tile hanging, waning edge timber, boarding, and brown grey roof tiles. Brown, grey, and red roof tiles. The precise specifications are subject to further review under condition 4 of the outline complaint. The proposal is broken down into 2 different character areas. The Hawthorne Crescent area has been applied along the Principal Street, Secondary Street, and around existing hedgerows. It's predominantly made up of 2.5-story dwellings with a high number of semi-detached and terraced units. The area is further defined by the use of more urban materials, including brown and red stock brick with buff brick detailing, yellow stock brick with red detailing, white render and or brown vertical hanging tiles. A small number of chimneys has been included in the character area on some of the semi-detached and terrace dwelling. Where gas is planted in Hawthorne Crescent, they are generally integral to the dwelling. Just to note that this terraced block here is an affordable housing block in this location. Just to demonstrate that it's reasonably tenure blind, there's very little difference between private dwellings and the affordable housing. The Meadowbrook character area faces onto public open spaces, and it's predominantly made of two-storey dwellings with a high number of detached units, creating a softer transition into the open space. Finishes generally relate to the overall scheme by repeating elevational treatments used elsewhere in the development, but with the additional use of the more rural wing edge timber boarding. There's also a mixture here of integral and detached garages. This is the proposed apartment block, which is one of the affordable housing applications sited within the more urban Hawthorne Crescent character area along the secondary routes. The landscape strategy is based around a hierarchy framework of streets and spaces with open spaces and play areas in central locations. The site has some distinctive natural features, including existing trees, boundary hedgerows, and planting. The proposal prioritises the retention and strengthening of these features. Other key landscape interventions include new subspaces, a cycle route through the public open space set in an attractive green corridor. New walking routes are accentuated by new trees and planting. Boundary planting is retained and is considered an important part of strategic green infrastructure. Street trees are used throughout, and retained trees are set into open space. Biodiversity mitigation and compensation measures include appropriate site clearance methods during appropriate times of year, establishment of biodiversity protection zones, establishment of dark corridors, as shown, establishment of species-rich grasslands, native shrub planting, and native hedgerow creation. Further measures include hibernaculated reptiles and great-crested newts on site, installation of bird and bat boxes, a new otter halt in the River Loddon, and a lighting proposal which takes into consideration bats. This slide shows some of the changes that have been sought from the initial consultation to overcome concern. Several iterations have been made to proposals to address points, and because of this, we're now in a position to recommend the scheme for approval. The key amendments that have been made are related to the layout of affordable housing in these two locations to better integrate them into the wider plan. Other changes that have been made include additional street parking, footways widened to 2 metres where required to allow for two-way movement, and raised table traffic calming. So in summary, the proposal has been through several reiterations to address concerns. The principle of residential development on this site has already been established through the outline. The proposal is in accordance with the local plan for spatial strategy, the Gillingham neighbourhood plan and relevant supporting guidance for this strategic site allocation. The proposal is acceptable in terms of its layout, scale, appearance and landscaping. The development will not lead to any material harm to residential community, and there are no material considerations which would warrant the refusal of the application. Thank you.
Thank you, Kirsten. Please, can I ask Gareth Jackson to speak on support of the application? You have 3 minutes, and I'll give you a heads up when 30 seconds are left.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for allowing me to speak in support of this reserve matters application on behalf of the applicant. I don't intend to take up the full 3 minutes. I think this is actually the 3rd time I've spoken in front of this committee in the space of a little over a year, which think demonstrates the commitment Redrow has in delivering this transformative site and recognises the importance that housing delivery has for the local area. It's now the 4th major Redrow application on the site, including the Loop Road, and it's the 5th overall when we include the Places for People scheme. And I thank the officers and their team for their work in getting us to this stage and being able to recommend it for approval. These positive discussions continue, and this ongoing constructive engagement ensures we are bringing forward proposals that reflect the original ambitions of the site and the aspirations of the local authority. I don't intend to go into any more detail about the principle of development. I think the officer's report is excellent in setting the scene and showing the changes that we've made through the course of determination. But the designs obviously presented build on the parameters previously set out. It has been amended during the course of determination to satisfy the comments, and this has resulted in the proposals you see today, providing a well-considered layout consistent with the previously approved applications and contributing towards sustainable development and the wider townscape. The proposals will deliver 155 new family homes, including affordable housing, making an important contribution to meeting the housing need of Gillingham, as well as securing the delivery of open space and connections to the wider locality. As a team, we've engaged positively with officers and other key stakeholders reflected in the feedback to the submission, and we look forward to continuing this work in the future to continue delivering this allocated site at a time when housing delivery has never been so critical to the region and to the country. That's it from me. Thank you for your time, and I trust you see the benefits of approving this important next phase of development. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. So now we'll go to questions. So around this way again. So I'll start with Councillor David Taylor.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor David Taylor, Chancellor Mary, and also Vice Chair of this Planning Commission today. Just looking over, I'm seeing objections from Gillingham, I think it is, Gillingham Town Council regarding the flooding. I see the LLFA have now been addressed and some of the issues are still concerns from the Town Council. How are we standing on this, please?
Kirsten.
Thank you for the question. Yeah, the local flood authority, further information has been submitted, but has alleviated their concerns, and they're now in a position to be able to support the application.
Fantastic, thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you for that. Councillor Rideout.
Okay, thank you, Chairman. Belinda Rideout, Gillingham Ward and the villages. Kirsten, excellent report. Thank you. Just a few questions. Heat pumps. In your report, it mentions all homes have air source heat pumps, and then in another bit it says if air source heat pumps to be installed. Can you just clarify if they're going to be installed?
Yeah, the sustainability, sorry, thank you for the question. The sustainability statement does propose air source heat pumps to every dwelling. I think the section of the report that says if they are to be installed relates to environmental health comments of the application. So apologies for the confusion. I think their argument was if they are to be installed, full acoustic statement would have to be put forward to demonstrate that the noise resulting from the air source heat pumps wouldn't negatively impact the amenity of residents.
Okay. Thank you. Another question, Chair, please. Going to Gillingham Town Council's comments, there was a comment about flooding and end pipe solutions into the attenuation ponds with no aquatic shelves, which limits the environmental benefit. Can you sort of elaborate on that, and is that possible?
Sure. Well, the ecological approach that's been set out for the SUDs is as follows. Will be the smaller fence, the smaller SUDs on the proposed fence to protect habitat from residential disturbance. They have been designed to incorporate shallow braided sides for access and egress of wildlife. They have a deeper central area for water containment. The ecological club works is to oversee the detailed design, construction of the SUD ponds, and dredging is proposed to maintain habitat for amphibians. It's worth noting also that the Dorset Council ecologist has reviewed these proposals and is satisfied that they will support an array of wildlife.
Okay. Thank you. May I ask?
Yes, go ahead.
Minimum space standards. I was a little bit concerned that some of the properties, the 2 and 3 bed dwellings and the 2 and 1 bed flats are below some of the minimum space standards. Is that something for us to be overly concerned about?
This came up also on a previous phase, and they are marginally below the national space standards. But when looked at on balance, the amount of amenity space provided, it's considered that they are acceptable as they are. Yeah.
Thank you, Chair. So
Thank you. Councillor Jeans.
Jack Jeans, Shaftesbury Wood. Dorset Council's target for affordable housing is, I think, it's 35%. You mentioned it was 25% on this site. Does North Dorset's local plan differ from the Dorset Council's local plan? Is that?
Yes, it does.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the question. The housing levels of affordable housing vary depending on which town it is, based on viability. So in the requirement in our local plan that's in place at the moment for Gillingham is 25% in this location. The Dorset plan might have different, the emerging plan might have different requirements based on current viability, but the policy we have to work towards requires 25% in Gillingham. This was decided at the outline stage. The original outline 106 had viability mechanisms in to review the viability as the site was taken forward. So the first phases were accepted to be only 10% affordable, with the intention to have viability reviews as the scheme progressed. When the developer took on this site and Redrow became involved, they wanted to ensure that they actually did provide policy compliant affordable housing across the whole allocation. So the Section 106 was varied to ensure that that would be required. It still means that there's differing levels of affordable on each phase, but overall we will meet the policy requirement of 25%, which this proposal will contribute towards.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. Councillor Major.
No questions, thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Fry.
Thank you, Chair. Kirsten, could I please have a look at slide 32? Not sure if I missed something.
The kitchen there.
Oh, kitchen dining.
Right, particularly there. Ground floor plan. Okay, I missed that. Thank you. No more questions.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Wood.
Yeah, Councillor Carwick, Jonathan Ward. I'm not sure if I saw it wrong or something, but I think one of the earlier maps or images you had a potential primary school extension mapped out somewhere. Was that part of this area? Yeah.
Thank you for the question. The primary school is part of the area across Shaftesbury Road, which is known as Park Farm, and that's yet to come forward. So we have a reserve notice that's been brought forward this year for part the phase one, which is residential, but the primary school is yet to come forward.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, apologies, Chair. Yeah, there's also land available for the existing primary school to expand. It's not part of this phase, but that was covered by the outline planning permission. And there's land. I don't think we've got a map that shows that area. Maybe on that one. Yes, I think it's the potential primary school extension area there. So that falls outside of this reserve matters, but there is provision for education considered as part of the outline application. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. Councillor Jones.
Thank you. Just a quick one. Are we able to mandate a small percentage of the affordable housing being made for to be disabled friendly, basically?
Well, thank you, Chair. This application isn't securing the type of affordable that's already been set out in the outline. So I'm not certain what the outline required in accessibility terms. So I haven't got that to hand, unfortunately. But the reserve matters that were before us today is just looking at the matters of appearance, scale, landscaping, layout. So we couldn't change that on this application. And I don't have that in front of me in terms of what we secured with the outlines. Apologies.
So could have missed a trick.
Without having the full details, I can't comment completely because we do.
Access of numbers. Okay.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Vitali.
Thank you, thank you, Councillor, for your very comprehensive presentation. This question following on from Councillor Jeans, actually. I think the proposals for the affordable housing are really good in this application. There's a good blending of the private and affordable units, both in terms of geography and typologies. And we frequently ask questions on that point in this committee. Just wanted to ask about your assessment that despite the fact that this is going to offer 20% affordable, that across the wider site, 25% affordable housing will be delivered. What's that assessment based on? For example, for the other larger site that has detailed permission granted, what was the contribution on that side? Do you know?
Thank you for your question. Do you know the phase 2 development was 45% affordable housing on that particular phase? I haven't got the quantum for phase 1 to hand, and phase 4 and 5 are yet to come forward.
Thank you, Chair. Your assessment is there's good reason to believe that across the whole site will make the 25%.
That's right. The 106 it's required by the 106, so they do need to meet that.
Yeah, I recognise that, but also I think we have a responsibility to make sure that they're going to meet that condition based on the detailed permissions that they come forward, applications they come forward with.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Apothecary.
Thank you, Chairman. Apothecary, Gilligan Ward. Actually, unsurprisingly, Councillor Rideout asked the questions that I was going to, and I'm happy with the answers she received. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Jesperson.
Chair Jesperson, Hillfort and Upper Tarrant Ward. If I could just follow on from the question that Councillor Vitali asked, which is interests me. I understand the viability discussions we've had, and I understand exactly how we're rolling out this Section 106 requirement for 25% affordable over the entire scheme. My concern is, what have we got in place to ensure that we could find ourselves in a position where we get to the final phases of the last bit of this scheme, and the viability discussion then comes forward that says actually the necessary 40% or 30% to bring the target up isn't deliverable. And because we are considering each of these applications on its own merit, which we are required to do, and because they are being rolled out over such an extended period of time, I mean years and years and years, again, as these things sometimes do, what have we got to protect ourselves from the fact that the circumstances might change and your assessment might prove to have been optimistic, and that the 25% viability turns out not to, 25% affordability turns out not to be viable?
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the question. The answer is we can't stop that happening because viability in terms of current policy has to be considered. What I can say is we're in a better situation now than we were when we granted the outline originally, because the original outline had viability mechanisms in it, where at each phase we had, the intention was to get 25%, but we had that viability mechanism that had to take that snapshot of the time at each reserve matter stage or whatever phase it was stage it was that was set out in the 106. We don't have that approach now. We have a developer that's committed to providing the 25%, has varied the 106 to establish that. I'm sorry I don't have the plan that shows the percentages on it, but no phase would have, as far as I can recall, over 50% affordable, so we still have a mix. So I completely understand the concern, will the last phase be 80%, 90%? That's not the case. And because the site's, a substantial site, having slightly higher levels than the 25% on some phases isn't particularly a problem, because it's still got a mix of tenures and opportunities for people to occupy the site. So it's very difficult, because we can't say that things won't change with market conditions or whatever happens. But I can say that we've got a developer that's the current 106 committed to policy compliant affordable housing in terms of the number of units across the whole site.
Okay, thank you for that.
Sorry, part two of the same question, if I may, Mr. Chair, and that's very reassuring. We have to trust to the commitment of the developer, and that's good to know. But I have a similar concern in terms of, again, because this is being rolled out in phases over such a long period of time, in terms of tenure. Because if we were looking at this as one big planning application, we would have a view about tenure and about pepper potting, in other words, where the properties are being located. And actually, as a committee and as a planning authority, we're not able to take that view because we're doing it piecemeal. So again, can you reassure the committee that you're keeping your eye on how that is going to roll out over the entire scheme, and that we won't end up with, again, the clusters that we try to avoid, that we are then presented as a fait accompli because there's nothing we can do because we've said yes to the rest?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we are looking at that as we go along, and I think some of the changes that Kirsten identified in terms of the affordable housing on this phase, because there's two groups of they're spread out across the site in two groups. Some of those amendments we've made on the layout, which we can consider on this application, have helped with exactly that point, to ensure that the affordable housing is integrated, tenure blind, fits in well. And the changes to the north in this area up here, which rotated the dwellings around and made sure they were part of the street, where before they were served by a different access. That's all part of that, is looking at the bigger picture, because it's a really good point. We don't want to sort of lose sight of how everything works. Let's just put the slide up there now, so you can see what was proposed originally with the dwellings turning their back to the road and having a separate access, and the actual proposal now with them rotated around and being part of the street scene. It's a much better. You wouldn't know the difference, and they look similar in the street scene as Kirsten showed on the slide. So it's something we definitely have to look at on each phase. Again, it's fairly limited numbers on this phase in terms of the amount of affordable, but as we go through and look at other phases, and I know that the Place to People development again was well integrated, which is the scheme adjacent to the site, and definitely taking that bigger picture of how the affordable is distributed is important. In terms of tenure, the outline has in section 06, which requires the split of affordable between the rented and the shared ownership in line with our policy. But there is the ability to look at the scheme based on current situations, because there have been some on smaller groups of houses, affordable housing, there has been some difficulties in getting affordable housing providers. And that has meant that we have had a small amount of first homes on this site, which is good in a way because it provides a different tenure, actually to a discount market units. But we have to keep obviously looking at that and discussing it with our housing enabling team to make sure that we get the mix of affordable that we want across the whole site. That's sort of ongoing discussions, and this application doesn't change that in terms of what's in the original 106. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you.
Just to say thank you very much, because of course we are taking a great deal of this on trust because it's rolling out over such an extended period. So thank you for that answer.
Thank you very much for your question. Councillor Cooper.
No questions.
Okay, thank you. Any more comments or proposals as we move into debate? Councillor Rideout.
Chair, doing the Rideout, Gillingham and the villages. quite a long time ago, I think it was 2017, we had Sajid Javid visited the Southern Extension for development took off. It was nice to meet him. And he held the whole site as an exemplary example of community planning. As I'm sure with my colleagues, we all want this to be top notch, the best we can possibly get it. And I know with this particular application, there were quite a few comments from the urban design officer not liking things, but I know our case officers worked really hard to address all those comments. And like we can see from the photographs of the intended developments and the dwellings that they look pretty good. I think we're almost there. We've got the best that we can get on this development, and the layout's good. And I think I have loads of questions and all mine have been ticked off. And I think on balance, on whole, I'd be happy to approve the application.
Okay, so would you like to make that into a proposal?
I propose.
Okay, thank you. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Pothegary. Okay, I think therefore we're ready to go to the vote. So if those could vote in favour. We have 11 in favour. Do we have any against or anyone abstaining? No. So we have 11 in favour. This means that the planning committee has decided to approve this planning application, which is P/RES/2023/5868. This is 155 new homes for associated infrastructure south of Gillingham and west of Shaftesbury Road. So that's the end of our applications. So we don't have any urgent items for this meeting. There is no exempt business. So therefore, I declare the meeting closed